All right, we're in round two, Measure C, Battle of the Beach. What's left of it. We've got Steve Diels. He's the city treasurer and the former District 4 councilman. And we've got Jim Light, city activist, founder of building Redondo. These two have been arguing about these issues for, I asked Steve Diels, maybe we should just have a duel and get it done with. You just bring weapons of your choice. And he says, oh, I brought mine. So with that, we'll get started. Who has the first question here? Is it David?
2-minute open, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Oh, we're going to change the format up a little bit since we have a little bit extra time. It's going to be 2-minute answers and 1-minute rebuttal round. So,
and a 2-minute opening, right?
Yeah, 2-minute opening.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Did you guys draw straws for?
Yeah, I think I got.
Okay.
I'm up first. Right? Correct. Okay. So thank you all for coming out. Thanks to the Easy Reader. Redondo voters have a very clear and simple choice. If you want the Centertown Mall, then you should vote no on Measure C. But if you want a more balanced revitalization, then voting yes on Measure C is the only tool you have that you control that you can put some curb this development into something more realistic. While we filed a lawsuit and an appeal to the Coastal Commission, those decisions will be made by people who don't live in this town. So your vote is the only thing you can control in this election. Measure C is written by residents, for residents, with input from the residents that's been gathered for the last 4 years. It was written because the mall's a bad deal. It has negative impacts to public safety. It creates a 2,200-foot long wall of development that more than doubles development and doubles traffic and blocks over 80% of the current views from Harbor Drive. It negatively impacts every single recreational use in the harbor as a harbor. And it's a bad financial deal if it's successful, and it's worse if it fails, like Upper Pier Plaza, like the Long Beach Pike, and the Ports of Call have already failed. Measure C represents a reasonable, balanced compromise that the city should have enforced in the first place. We shouldn't have been forced to this place. It puts public safety first, it protects our quality of life, and it protects long-established and very popular recreational uses of our precious harbor as an actual harbor. And it still allows reasonable development and growth. So don't let the misleading sound bites from Centertown's $450,000 campaign distract you. Their wild claims are easily disproven if we're given the time. We can build them all anywhere, but we have just one harbor, and we've got the only harbor in 25 miles of coastline from Marina del Rey to the Port of Los Angeles. Our city council has approved the mall, and its lease terms, the only thing we can do to balance the revitalization is a vote yes on Measure C. Thank you.
Hello, I also welcome you here. Thank you for being so concerned about your community. I've been very involved in the city for going on 10 years working on this particular issue. I spent 8 years on the city council, and I've been your treasurer for the last couple, so it's going on a full decade for me. My first question is, how can a failing plan generate traffic? I'm hearing this contradiction that this thing's going to fail, no one's going to come, and yet we're going to generate all this traffic. Just throwing that out there. I'm going to give you a little context. Redondo Beach is one of 88 cities in the county of Los Angeles. We're a small city. We're a bigger of small cities, but we're a small city. The number one issue facing the city, in my humble opinion, is our ability to maintain ourselves as a vibrant, viable, full-service city. Hermosa Beach to the north was not mentioned in the last debate. They mentioned Santa Monica and Manhattan Beach, which, by the way, happen to be thriving. Hermosa Beach is not. They are about to lose their status as an independent city as they lose their fire department. We have very serious considerations to have going forward. The waterfront is only part of that. The city has undergone a 10-year process of trying to get this the waterfront revitalized. It's in terrible shape. I am not Coleman, but I do have something to share. This is the status of our harbor. It's crumbling and falling apart. Measure C does nothing to revitalize or fix our harbor, nor does it do a darn thing to rectify traffic. The current status of the waterfront development is that done or do I have time?
15 seconds.
15 seconds. Okay. After a 10-year process, Measure G was passed in 2008. In 2006, Bill Brand and Jim Light were advocating for 325,000 square feet down there. And Center Cal, that's up here, Center Cal is 310. And I'll get into more of those details.
Okay, first questions from David Mendez.
So define success for a waterfront project. What is a successful development for a waterfront project, and how does your opponent's vision not achieve that?
A note on procedure here. With the 1 minute rebuttal, we'll have the 15-second bell again. So, why don't we start with Steve?
Okay. So we set out 10 years ago, and especially with Measure G, to try to find the smallest footprint that's economically viable to revitalize our waterfront. That is what I call a successful development. We didn't know if we would hit the target or not. There was a compromise position of 400,000 square feet, which Mr. Light overwhelmingly complimented for the compromise. But we still didn't know if 400 was enough. We subsequently have had an EIR, traffic studies, and economic studies that validate that actually 310,000 square feet, less than what Jim Light and Bill Brand had been promoting on their website, as recently as last week when I pulled down some data that you'll find in the packet that we handed out. So I see a successful development as one that helps carry our city going forward, does not generate negative impacts, and helps us to maintain our city as a vibrant, viable, independent, full-service city with great public safety, cops, firefighters, dispatch center, public works, homeless services, and everything you need and that you enjoy in the city today.
Hey, could you repeat the question, David?
The question was, define success for a waterfront project.
Okay, that's good. Okay, success for the waterfront project is revitalization without an overbloated mall. We should embrace our harbor as a harbor. As I said, we've got the only one in 25 miles of coastline. And turning it into a wall of a mall is a waste of that space. Where we've got malls failing all around us, we can't even keep our Galleria Mall operational. So why would we take the risk of building almost 10 times what has already failed in the harbor? The Upper Pier Plaza was 65,000 square feet. It failed within months. Now we're building nearly 10 times that. And if we're stuck with a decaying mall, it's not going to just be a bad-looking waterfront. It's going to suck up the revenues from this city for safety, for repairs, and things like that for the next 99 years. It's a 99-year lease. This is a bad deal for Redondo. So my vision is that we put more commercial development away from the harbor, and we use the revenues from that to help pay for the harbor. And there's many ways to pay for it. For example, in Measure C, the boat ramp requirement is designed to get state funding for the boat ramp, unlike the boat ramp in the current plan, which doesn't meet state requirements and is deemed dangerous by the whole Harbor Patrol. So we should be able to use our harbor as a harbor. We should be empowering the next generation of watermen to get out there in a safe environment, and we shouldn't hide it behind a giant mall that's designed to keep us away from that harbor. There's not even enough parking to enjoy the harbor as a harbor. So my vision is keep it as a harbor and generate revenues elsewhere, like the AES property and all the way up to 190th Street to cover the costs of that. Thank you.
Okay, 1 minute rebuttal. Start with Mr. Diels.
Okay, so back to the question of what's a successful development. Well, let me read Jim Light's own statement. Back when we determined the size of Measure G, Mr. Light wrote, "I applaud your compromise on the development cap on the pier and harbor zoning. It resolves the compliance issues and provides a stable environment with reasonable growth for developers to make investment decisions." So think about this, folks. When we go through this process to try to determine what size and what will be in the waterfront, we had to listen to everybody. We listened to Jim Light, we listened to Bill Brand, we listened to BBR, we listened to the Parkland Conservancy, and they agreed that this was an appropriate size. The fact of the matter is we didn't know what it would be until we did subsequent studies. Those were all requested, they've been conducted, and they've come out successful.
Okay, since you brought up my statement on the 400,000 square feet, if they were talking about between 1 million and 750,000 square feet, they came down to 400,000. But what Steve never puts out is the rest of that email, which said, I still have concerns over the use of the heart of the city EIR because we didn't know the impacts. We knew the traffic was going to be bad. That wasn't reflected. And what he's not telling you is that we never voted, Measure G did not say put 82% of the development cap in just 17% of the harbor. It said you spread it out over all 155 acres, not cram it into the only open space in the harbor. And on top of that, what he's not telling you is Measure G, if you look at it, it never excludes parking structures from their cap. If you include the new 5-level, 3-story parking structure, 45 feet high, this project goes to almost 800,000 square feet and violates Measure G zoning. None of us voted for that.
Next question, Kelsey.
Okay, so let's say Measure C passes. Then what? What are the implications of its passage? And let's start with
I think
you.
I start. So that's a great new day. As Mayor Haskell said, we'll all get up and go to work and do our jobs. We've got to resolve things with the Coastal Commission because the project is submitted to the Coastal Commission. So we'll have to resolve that. And it's really going to depend on the council that you elect. If you elect a pro-resident council versus a pro-developer council, then we can get to work right away on designing a new project that stays within the intent of Measure G and what was sold in Measure G and what is now would now be defined in Measure C. So we can wake up that next day with a new council and start moving forward on a compromised design that embraces the harbor as a harbor and truly balances the revitalization of the harbor. I do like Bill Brand's idea of combining the AES site and the 190th Street development to look at this as an integrated development from end to end, not piecemeal development. And as anybody who's driven down there knows, the roads down there can't take that level of traffic. So day after Measure C, we all go rejoice, we go back to work, and then we let the council do their job. We can resolve this relatively quickly. The one question we would have is, is Senator Cal really going to, take their ball and go home, or are they still willing to work with us? I'd actually prefer a developer who understands waterfronts than a mall developer.
Mr. Diels?
Okay, am I rebutting, answering the question, or what?
Answering the question. So
Same
what
question.
happens if Measure C passes?
Okay, all right, so if Measure C passes, this continues. There's no abatement. Measure C does not resolve the deterioration in the waterfront, nor does it raise, there's no funding mechanism for it either. There are legal questions and contradictions within it, so it's really not known exactly what's going to happen when Measure C passes, if it passes. What will happen should, look, the fact of the matter, let's just get straight to the point. Measure C is designed to drive away Central Cal. That's it, okay? Make no mistake about it. If they go away, if they're successful, we have no developer, we have no private partner, we have no investment. That means that the $200 million in investment capital requirement is going to fall on us, the residents. So I guess what we do the day after Measure C passes is we start to figure out where we're going to get the money and what services we're going to cut. If this represents the $200 million is a $6 million shortfall to our budget. That affects your police and fire department, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's why I bring up the kind of strategic mistakes that Hermosa has made in the past. It's very unfortunate. Hermosa is the most susceptible to running into problems soonest because they're so small and they've got so few resources. We're not that different, given the fact that we have Sacramento and a global economy and all these forces working against us. All right, so we lose $200 million. We lose $400 million of investment. We lose $250,000 right away of lease income. We lose. We will have to maintain $1.5 million in maintenance down there that will not be picked up by our private partner. We'll have to pay. I already said the $200 million we'll have to come up with. So It's just, it's not a great day. So he'll be drinking champagne and we'll be trying to figure out how to solve the problem.
So the day you wake up after Measure C passes, the harbor's not going to fall into the abyss and into Redondo Canyon offshore. We're not going to be bankrupt overnight. If you listen to Bob Pinsler when he testified to the city council, he said a former city manager said, the way you cram development down the residents' throats is by letting an area look bad. And that's what the city's done. We've neglected that area of the harbor now since heart of the city. And that's why you have things like that. But if you read the restoration specialists that the city hired, they didn't say tear down and rebuild the whole parking structure. They actually recommend restoration, not refurbishment, as not rebuilding as their highest recommendation to the city. So this thing doesn't fall apart. I asked the city, where did you get that $200 million price tag on this infrastructure? Before it was under 100, now it's 200. And the result I got back from a formal request is there are no responsive documents. So there is no analysis and backup to those numbers that Steve Diels is spreading.
All right, next question from David. Oh, I'm sorry, did we miss a rebuttal round?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, that wasn't rebuttal.
That was rebuttal. Those were two rebuttals. Yeah, they both rebutted. We could rebut all night.
Well, we both answered the question that he did rebuttal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so, again, this doesn't stop. It's still happening, it's happening right now. This was actually collected from the harbor today, okay? This hasn't been sitting around my garage last time I brought a piece of concrete to show everybody. I've also got a picture here in this handout I gave you. Infrastructure deterioration and the pollution that's occurring with the current water plant. We've got, we get bad report cards from Hill Bay, the water quality is a problem. That's
with the Coastal Commission. So I'm not afraid of that. But beyond that, if Senator Cal's not afraid of this, why are they spending nearly $500,000 on a campaign against it? If they're that comfortable that this doesn't apply to them, why are they spending so much money on it? I think they're afraid of it. I think they know that the Coastal Commission is going to consider it. I think they know that this will impact them if we're successful. And again, it's the only thing you control. The only thing. You don't know what the Coastal Commission is going to do. You can't control them, and you can't control a judge in court. So this is it's your vote. It's the only thing you control. If you don't want the mall the way it's designed down there today, the only thing you can do that you control is vote yes on Measure C.
the question again, please.
The question was regarding the city attorney's belief that the measure zoning may not be enforceable for Center Coast projects.
Right. So, it's unclear really what it means. And what I've learned in my experience on the city council dealing with the legal world, the law is what the highest court says it is, who is willing to read it. So, we don't know what it means. Unfortunately, and Mr. Light is alluding to this. Of course, Senator Cal is nervous about this because this is aimed right at their back. This is fully intended to drive Senator Cal out. So yes, they're nervous about it. Do they think it applies to them? I would think they would argue that it doesn't. But in the end, we don't know. We don't know what some judge or how it's going to rule. So what the city attorney is saying indirectly is it's leading to litigation. And what I think Mr. Light is saying more directly is it's going to lead to litigation. So that's just another cost to the city, another nail in the coffin against our little city in Redondo Beach that's struggling to survive in this complex world that we live in, and we still need to provide all the rest of the services that we require. Just leave it at that.
Rebuttal.
Okay, again, I arrested Senator Cal. If they weren't scared of this, they wouldn't be spending $450,000 polluting your mailbox with mailers every day and using some of our elected officials to try to confuse you on the issue. The real issue isn't what's in those mailers, it's whether we want the mall as it is today or not. As I said before, This wasn't aimed at Center Cal. This was aimed at the balance we were promised in Measure G. And if we get to Seaside Lagoon, we'll cover some of that later. But we were promised a lot when we were in Measure G, and it wasn't what we have here today. In fact, when Bill and I paraded a plan for a mall that Decron, the previous leaseholder, had, Pat Oust and several of the council chastised us and said, we would never vote for that. And that mall was less square footage than what Center Cal has proposed.
Okay, well, when they supported that mall, which probably was a mall, they were supporting it. So you just heard him say he was supporting development much higher than what Measure C allows. So it's yet another pivot. I'm going to go ahead and start on the Seaside Lagoon because if you're not going to ask the question, it's very important.
Steve, we're going to ask that question.
You are? Okay. Then
We got,
I'll wait.
you're still in the rebuttal round for the last question.
Well, let's see. Oh, I'm a businessman. He just said a moment ago that any good businessman is going to hide his profit. I don't know that that's the case. I think that business people like to make a profit, and it doesn't require hiding it. And that's not, when he talks about a business person, he's talking about me, but those words are coming from him. That's the way he thinks, not me. I, as your treasurer, I'm not trying to hide profit. I've done more to engage the city in transparency in recent years than anybody. And we would be auditing these folks. We're bringing in more auditing going forward. So it's not anybody's contention to be hiding money and cheating you. He said that, not me.
Next question from David.
This one is directed towards Steve. Are there portions of the development that you are concerned with? And if so, what are they? And do you believe the city will be able to negotiate the fine details down of the project?
What was the question?
He says, are there problems with the project as it stands? I think I have problems with Measure C. So we don't have, Measure C doesn't have a project. Measure C redefines the zoning. I can't have trouble with a project that doesn't exist. I don't think there will be one that exists. So right now we've uniformed the development, we've consolidated the leaseholds, and we have a primary partner, which is Center Cal. Without Center Cal, if they go away, it's going to be piecemeal, piece by piece, because it's not going to be attractive to us as a large developer. And so, yeah, so each one of those projects, I think we would have trouble with, because the way these guys pivot, they'll oppose those too.
So there were two developers that were considered in conjunction with Center Cal. Both of them proposed smaller projects, and both of them predicted that the amount of retail would fail down here. Unfortunately, and both of them had experience with Southern California waterfront properties. They said high retail restaurant development would fail. They proposed lesser projects. Measure C allows lesser projects, so I'm confident that we would get other people coming forward for this great opportunity on our waterfront. And if we throw an AAS with it, it's even more attractive. This project has lots of problems. You don't be fooled that the city council's going to wheedle it down later. City council's approved it. It's gone through by appeal. And they've negotiated their lease agreement with that project approved as was approved during the appeal. So the city can't wheedle it down now. The only ones who can are us voters, the lawyer on the lawsuit, or the Coastal Commission. And as I said before, your vote is the only thing you control in any of those processes. So if you think there's things that are flawed in the project, don't count on the city council fixing it. They've had this for 4 years, and it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse.
Wow, I am just not that cynical. I'm a happy person. I'm looking forward to a vibrant waterfront down there. I'm not calling business people negative. Okay. The development, again, I remind you, is smaller than what Jim Light advocated, okay? And he's talking about the other two developers, maybe it's sour grapes. They weren't selected. One of whom was a high-density condominium developer, townhome developer, whatever, that was Pacifica. The other one was pretty attractive. I know, I was in city council at the time. Was the Terranea Group, and that looked pretty promising. But the one developer that came in with the best mix and the best, I think, proposal, it was selected 4-1, of course, Guess who didn't vote for it? It was selected 4-1 for Center Cal. The other two developers, one of them got 1 vote. So I don't know why he's asking for their opinion, unless it was sour grapes.
1 minute.
One more about, yeah, 1 minute.
And I'm up.
Yep.
So the one developer he said was a condo developer. They didn't come forward with a condo plan. That wasn't in the zoning. They couldn't have done that. So the other 2 developers proposed a resort that had a hotel, and it was much more promising than what we see today. So I'm not anti-business. I'm pro-business, but I am anti a giant mall down in our harbor that would, if it's successful, would create traffic, and if it's not, will be a burden on the city for generations to come. Look how long we've had to live with Upper Pier Plaza. That's decades. That's decades, and we're getting under market rates for that now. So that times 10, we think we can support that in the waterfront. I don't believe that.
Okay, so we have one final question, and that is, what do you think is the future of Seaside Lagoon with state mandates and water quality control fees increasing year to year? And we'll start with Steve.
Okay. So I brought up the other pivots. In your handout, there's a picture of Seaside Lagoon open to the ocean. This is one of 3 plans that Jim Light and Bill Brand have circulated that open the Seaside Lagoon to the water. The reason opens it to the harbor. The reason this is an attractive opportunity, opening the Seaside Lagoon to the harbor, is it's minimal maintenance expense, and it qualifies or resolves the issues we have with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. What Measure C requires, if we have to change the lagoon, is to build a giant pool down there. It's over 1 acre in size. Oh, we're hearing an announcement. I guess we're getting close to it. So we'll have to build a giant pool down there according to Measure C. You can't use seawater, so it would have to be fresh water. It's a very complicated location. It's subject to liquefaction. It's subject to hydrostatic pressure from the ocean pushing forward. The one nearby pool that's an example that I see most often is the one over at in Palos Verdes and PVE, right on the coastline there. It's built above ground. It's basically a building housing a pool. And that's what we would have to build down here, except that in the Seaside Lagoon, you're not allowed to build any new buildings. So there's conflicts within the measure. Seaside Lagoon's future, as it's currently configured, is certainly jeopardized by the Clean Water Act. Where the city is facing millions of dollars in fines. And so that certainly has to be rectified. Opening the lagoon to the harbor water allows kids to swim in the same water they're swimming in now, which, by the way, is harbor water.
So my idea of fixing Seaside Lagoon is not forcing kids to swim in contaminated, untreated harbor waters. Right now the water is chlorinated to kill pathogens. It has to meet public pool swimming standards, and it does. So right now the kids are safe. Making them swim in harbor waters we paid for a water quality expert to examine that. He said that they'll be exposed to pathogens, which our toddlers are especially susceptible to. Heal the Bay jumped on board with that as well. So pushing kids to force them to swim in Seaside Lagoon, and there's 81,000 guests who use that every year, our most used park in the summer, is not the answer I think we should be doing. We should be protecting public health, not degrading it. The measure does not require a giant three times Olympic-sized swimming pool. In fact, that would violate the measure because it wouldn't have a weighting feature, and it does say that it has to service people of all ages, toddlers and swimming abilities, toddlers to swimmers. So it doesn't require 3 Olympic-sized swimming pool size pool. It would allow things like what's spreading all over our country, spray gardens where kids can wade and play in the spray. That's one of the attractions of Seaside Lagoon. It would allow things like what Body Glove proposed a few years ago, a wave pool with a lazy river and with a wading pool for kids and even a dive training pool. And they offered to pay for that and operate it as a concession. So we can convert that thing. There's all sorts of alternatives in Measure C. It doesn't say you must put in a giant swimming pool that's the equivalent of 3 Olympic swimming pools.
Yes, it does. If you read the measure, it says that if you have to change the lagoon, you have to put in a 1 acre pool. Okay? It says that. It's in the measure. Now, the other thing about Mr. Light pivoting, I want to point out, here is his plan for an open lagoon. So when the decisions were being made about how to go about this, there were plenty of public meetings, and Jim Light and Bill Brand and many of you weighed in. So an open lagoon was considered a feasible prospect. So now, one thing I pointed out in the past, the only consistent position Mr. Light has ever had is opposition to the city. So as soon as the city came up, or the proposal was to open the lagoon to the ocean, they pivoted again. So that makes me wonder about this whole thing. What is it really? Is this really about the waterfront? Is it really about our interests, or is it about something else altogether?
So Measure C says that if they have to replace the Seaside Lagoon, it has to be with a swimming facility of equivalent water size. It doesn't say a pool, and it specifically says a pool or a similar recreational swimming and wading water facility. So it doesn't tie you in to an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and then it goes on to say it has to be usable by all ages and levels of swimming ability. So a giant Olympic-sized swimming pool, an acre wide, would not meet Measure C requirements. He also says that you can't build it. His latest mailer that CenterCal paid for says that you can't fit it all in. That's not true. There's nothing in Measure C that doesn't allow you to expand Seaside Lagoon or build facilities outside of Seaside Lagoon to support it.
Okay. I circled it. A pool. It says right there.
I read it too.
No new expanded structures, parking, streets, driveways in or adjacent to Seaside Lagoon Regional Park may decrease the park's open space. So if you build the pool, you're decreasing the open space by the size of the buildings for which you have to build the pool. So it's a conflict that's in here. That's why I say it's not known what this really means. He says that a pool is not a pool. A wading facility with water in it that you can swim in and wade in is not a pool. Go figure. Anyhow, we need to get to the boat launch. We can talk about that one too.
Okay, that was the second rebuttal, so I'm going to give you another minute too, Jim.
Pardon?
That was the second rebuttal, so you get one more rebuttal too.
Okay. Okay. So I did read what it is. It says swimming or wading facility. Doesn't say a pool. And a wading facility is a lot cheaper than a giant Olympic-sized swimming pool. Spray gardens are much cheaper, and they're popping up all over the U.S. And as I said before, we can do just like we did in Aviation Park. That AstroTurf was paid for by the operator, and it's run as a concession. We had Dive and Surf come in here and say they'd be willing to run it as a concession. The same thing is being proposed down in San Diego, where they want to put in a wave pool. It's being run as a concession. So there's nothing that ties us into a $25 million swimming pool that's 3 times the size of an Olympic swimming pool.
Okay, now we're going to come to closing statements. Let's go.
I go first. Okay, well first, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, but most of all, I want to thank all the residents who are out there volunteering their time to get the word out about Measure C. It's truly a David versus 3 Goliaths. We're up against the city, we're against CenterCal, and we're against the chamber, and they have at least a $450K budget that we've seen so far. Grassroots is what this country was founded on, and so I'm honored to be a small part of this movement. I thank you for everything you're doing. Voters have a clear choice. Don't let yourself get caught up in distracting mailers and campaign ads. If you want them all, then vote no on C. But if you want a balanced development down in our harbor that honors the only harbor in 25 miles of coastline, then vote yes on C. Vote yes for vote for a brand new mayor, Bill Brand. Vote for Nelson Ehrenheim in District 1. Todd Lowenstein in District 2, and Susie Royds in District 4. And I thank you all for coming out tonight, and I thank the Easy Reader for putting on this venue.
I agree with Mr. Light. Thank you all. And I'll go one step further and thank Mr. Light for a very civil debate. It was very nice. I would say that not all of the debate through this process has been civil, and there's a virtual war going on on Facebook, and it's just incredibly distasteful. I don't know why we can't debate the facts like we're doing now and move forward as a community. These debates have been going on now for 10 years. What frustrates me most about Measure C, so I don't get these mixed up, is that it starts the fighting all over again. We voted on Measure G. We have a public-private partnership that's actually proposing less development than what Mr. Light has been advocating. I know there's a lot of strange information going out there. I'm going to assume that this is a typo, but on the signature gathering effort to get this thing on the ballot that we're currently voting on now, it says that, do you really want a mall and 620,000 square feet of parking structure along Harbor Drive? That's not true. It's 200,000. And the net new, because when they take down part of the other structure, it's a net new parking addition of 110,000 square feet. That's 1/6 of what they were advertising right here. I've demonstrated to you that we have worked with Bill Brand and Jim Light over the years. We've listened to them, and for some reason that whenever they get what they want, they change their position. I can't explain it. I can only witness it and tell you about it. I urge you to vote no on Measure C, as I already did when I first got my ballot, I don't know, a week or two ago. It does nothing to resolve traffic. The day after the election, traffic will be getting worse, just like it always has been. It does nothing to revitalize the harbor. There's no provision in it at all to revitalize the harbor. There are only restrictions on revitalizing the harbor. That's really what it is. It will cost us tremendously. We've got a good plan in place. CentraCal has been a good partner despite the demonization of some very good people that we've worked with over the last 4 or 5 years now. I don't really know what else to say. This thing is just terribly written. There's all kinds of circular reasoning in it, conflicts. It's barely understandable. And I just think it's a shame, and as I said before, a missed opportunity. So if you're going to put a plug in for your candidates, I'll put them in for mine. Vote for Steve Aspel. He's worked his arse off for you. He's put up with some very contentious meetings, and he's been a good public servant for many years now that I've worked with him. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, our reporters, Civic Couch, Brad Jacobson, for live streaming this onto Facebook, and thanks everybody for attending. Thank you.